So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital revolution. The Department of Labor is making some changes to the salary requirements for the Fair Labor Standards Act, and we're going to talk about it today. The history of salary exemptions under the FLSA is about the evolving nature of labor relations in the United States. It was enacted in 1938 and was a response to widespread exploitation of workers during the Great Depression. But recognizing the diversity of employment roles, the FLSA included provisions for exempting certain categories of employees from its minimum wage and overtime requirements. Over the years, these exemptions have undergone refinements and adjustments to reflect changes in the economy and the nature of work. The historical trajectory of salary exemptions demonstrates the ongoing efforts to balance the need to protect workers' rights with the recognition that certain specialized and managerial roles may require different compensation structures. Court decisions, legislative updates, and changing societal perspectives on work have all contributed to shaping the landscape. The Department of Labor is proposing an increase from 35,000 to 55,000 for the white collar exemptions to overtime requirements. So, as a quick recap here, whenever you hear the word exempt, what it means is that you're exempt from overtime from the Fair Labor Standards Act. And specifically, there are several different types of exemptions. We're not going to go into each one today, but one of them is a white collar exemption. A white collar exemption refers to a category of employees who are exempt from the minimum wage and overtime pay requirements due to their job duties. This exemption applies to certain executive, admin, professional employees who meet specific criteria established by the Department of Labor. It's a three-factor test. It's a salary basis. The employees must be paid on a salaried basis rather than an hourly basis. And this is really key because there was a highly compensated employee, I think that was ruled earlier this year, who was paid on a per diem basis. And because they were making like $200,000 a year or something like that. And because they were paid on a per diem basis and not a salary basis, they were still obligated to pay overtime. In addition, there's a salary level test. It has to meet the minimum threshold. Right now, that threshold is 35,568, and that is periodically updated to reflect economic changes. In addition, they have to meet the job duties test, and that's really the difficult part. Honestly, this needs to be changed a little bit, in my opinion, and you could stop changing the salary so much. But the job duties test is a primary job duties must involve executive, administrative, or professional tasks as defined by the FLSA. Executive duties look like supervising and overseeing employees' work, having the authority to hire, fire, or recommend such actions, exercising independent judgment and decision making. Administrative duties look like non-manual or office work, using independent judgment and discretion in matters of significance. And professional duties are professional employees who perform work that require advanced knowledge in a specific field, like performing work that requires intellectual, creative, or specialized knowledge, work that is predominantly intellectual and varied in nature, and the work must be original and creative. The other thing that I like about this new ruling is that the Department of Labor is proposing an automatic increase every 3 years to the overtime threshold. And what that means is, I presume it's going to be tied to inflation or something of that nature, but this number will continuously increase over time. And I do think that that's reasonable. A white collar exemption shouldn't be making $35,000 in this economic climate, in my opinion. In addition, the United States territories will now be responsible for complying with overtime protections again. From 2004 to 2019, the Department of Labor's regulations encouraged and ensured that U.S. territories where the federal minimum wage was applicable, they had to have also the overtime salary threshold. And this would return to that practice after 2019 and ensure that workers in the U.S. territories are subject to who are subject to the federal minimum wage have the same overtime protections. The salary threshold used to be 23,660 before 2020. In 2020, Trump raised the overtime rule to move it to 35,568, which would mean about 42,594. This article, which is from SHRM, link down below if you want to know more, if you're interested in what SHRM has to say. SHRM is the Society for Human Resources Management. It is the preeminent organization for human resources, and it says that about 300,000 manufacturing workers would be entitled to overtime pay, the Labor Department reports. And entitled is probably the key word here, and it should be highlighted. What's ultimately going to happen is that businesses will not the background of this video is a little bit misleading because people will not be rolling in the money. Businesses will either limit the overtime that employees spend or potentially hire another person and encourage higher employment rates. Frankly, that's one of the main reasons that the Fair Labor Standards Act worked, is because previous to the Act of 1938, you could work an employee 80 hours, and that would be one employee for one job. When you had to start paying overtime, you would hire two employees for two jobs. And that's part of the magic of getting out of the Depression. I think there were a lot of other situations and circumstances involved. Please don't take this idea as what saved the United States during the Great Depression. But it is a component of what happened, and that's what you'll probably see in the statistics going forward. In general, I'm in favor of it. I think that raising the amount of money as the threshold is the easiest way to govern these things. This overtime can often be abused, and frankly, it says 180,000 hospitality and leisure workers would be impacted. I think that will be the predominant impact. A lot of restaurant managers are heavily overworked, not making a significant amount of money because they fall under this exemption. And so raising the threshold would be a reasonable contradiction to it.
What do you
Let
think
me know what
about
you think in the
today's
comments down
video?
below. Are you getting
Please
a raise if
comment
this
down below.
passes? Let me know. Like, share, and
share, and
subscribe, and we'll see you on the
subscribe.
next
It
video.
really
Bye, guys.
helps out. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.